Hi, welcome to this screencast on Prayer Before Birth, which is a poem in Anthology C, part of your Edexcel Certificate in English Literature, Paper 2. For this screencast, you will need access to the internet, your copy of the poem, a pen, and a highlighter. Lewis MacNeice is the poet who wrote this poem. He's an Irish poet. He wrote it during the Second World War in 1944. And it's mostly about his fear about what it's like for a child to be born into a world that is in the midst of war. The best way for you to experience the reading of the poem is for you to go to this website, poetryarchive.org, search for Prayer Before Birth, and listen to the poet read the poem. Hit pause now and come back to the screencast after you've listened to the poem. See you in a few minutes. Welcome back. First, let's talk about the gasp of the poem. The genre is free verse. It's a dramatic monologue. The audience, originally citizens in 1944 who were experiencing World War II. The subject is about a child, the unborn child, its prayers to protect itself against the world of 1944. Its purpose, probably in 1944, although Mr. MacNeice hasn't told me this himself, is probably his expression of his fears about what it's like for children to grow up in the world. For a modern audience, perhaps it serves as a warning for us about not returning to such a world. Now we're going to go through the poem stanza by stanza. In stanza 1, the unborn child is asking for protection from animals and ghosts. Take a look at stanza 1 and highlight some of the things that the child is asking for protection from. In stanza 2, the child is asking for protection from man and the tortures that he has created. Take a look at stanza 2. Highlight or underline some of the things that the child is asking for protection from. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 objects that you should look for. In stanza 3, the child is asking for provision from nature. Take a look at stanza 3. So, for example, he wants water and grass and trees. Go ahead and circle those. Circle he'd like protection from the sky, the birds. And then finally he says, a white light in the back of my mind to guide me. Now personally I don't think that relates to nature. I think that might be something else. Draw a line from white light and annotate with your idea about what that phrase might mean. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that. Next, stanza 4. Stanza 4 is the child feeling that they are not in control of their actions that they should be in control of. So, for example, look at the third line. My words when they speak me. My thoughts when they think. So you have a real comparison here of the pronouns. They versus me. Take a look at the other examples within this stanza of what they feel they should be in control of. Highlight some of those. If you need some help, look for the theys and connect them. In stanza 5, we have a connection back to stanza 3, the nature stanza. Now the actions in stanza 5, by nature, are quite negative. So instead of the water dandling me and the grass growing for me, we have instead the waves calling me to folly. Have a look, make sure you know what the word folly is, and then think about what the waves are encouraging this person to do. What you might want to do is underline the nature bits, such as water, with one line, and then the verbs, such as call, with 2 lines, and you'll see a pattern within the stanza. In stanza 6, you have the child asking for protection from humans, and he compares them to animals. To the man who is a beast. He also compares them to men who think that they are God and too powerful. Perhaps McNeice was thinking about Hitler when he wrote this. In stanza 7, the child is praying to be an individual. It does not want to be controlled by other people, as it is in stanza 4 with the theys and the me's. So it wants to be an individual. It doesn't want to be just one face or a thing. And it wants to be against all of those who would turn it into what society wants instead of letting it be an individual. In stanza 8, we have the child's final wish, and it's quite dire. It says, "Let them not make me a stone, and let them not spill me, otherwise kill me." So the child wishes to be dead if it cannot live a free and self-determined life. Now, when you look at the poem and use slime to look at the poem, some different things to look at would be the stanza lengths and also how they look on the page. We'll be talking about that in class. I'd like you to think about the effect of the poem on the reader. Remember, the E of slime stands for effect. And if you would, please, at the bottom of the poem, would you write down a sentence about the effect of the poem on you? Remember, effect can be how it made you feel or what it made you think. There are other poems in Anthology C that connect to this theme of childhood. We've already looked at If, Prayer Before Birth, and 2:30. Soon we will be looking at these poems, Piano, and Hide and Seek. It's important that you remember that these poems can all be connected, because on the exam you'll be asked to compare 2 similar poems. If you would like an extension, you can go to YouTube and look for a BBC documentary on Louis McNeice and this poem. I'm just going to pull this up on the screen so that you can see what it looks like. It looks like this, so you can just search for 1.5 Prayer Before Birth and have a listen to that. It's 6 minutes long. It goes through the poem, and it also talks about different aspects of the poem. I think you might find that quite helpful. Thank you for listening to this podcast, and we'll see you in class.